Back when Cyberpunk 2077 just got released, I immediately fell in love with this game. Sure, the game did have a lot of problems back on launch, but it was mostly functioning on high-end PC builds. Because on consoles it's where the game mostly flawed. Luckily for both systems, a next-gen version of Cyberpunk was released alongside the Tide 1.5 update. But how good is Cyberpunk now? And why did I fall in love with the game in the first place? And how does it play on consoles now? I will explain it all in the Cyberpunk 2077 Next Gen review. To start things off, let's first talk about why I already loved Cyberpunk. And I know there's a big split in the community because most people either really love it or totally hate it. And that's perfectly fine. But this review is about my thoughts, and if you want to see a review for someone who doesn't love Night City as much as I do, go watch one after this one if you want to know their thoughts. But honestly, I think people know why a lot of players didn't like Cyberpunk in the first place. It's because of the amount of glitches, ton of cut features and flat out broken systems. But to be honest, the only thing I watched before release was the trailers and just one gameplay demo, and I didn't really hype myself up in the first place, so I came in with an open mind. And although I agree Cyberpunk on release was definitely flawed, it still had many incredible moments. Because I really loved the main story from the get-go. I created my V with the corporate background and was immediately hooked with the astounding graphics, awesome character creation and the gorgeous looking Night City. And in my opinion, Cyberpunk has one of the best NPCs I ever came across in a video game. Like, let's take Judy as an example. I very much knew how she was like, felt like a good friend, and she was very different than a Panam for example. These characters felt alive, with their own strengths, flaws and motivations. But what hooked me the most was the main story and the side quest, and that's where these characters really got to shine. And by side quest, I don't mean the smaller gigs you find around the city, but side quests like the whole story for Panam. This felt just as good as the main story, with great storytelling, interesting side characters and some choices to be made. And although I would have loved to see more choices in Cyberpunk's quest overall, it was still a very enjoyable experience. But as I said, the main story is where Cyberpunk is at its best. After and during the famous heist mission, as I won't spoil it for people who haven't played the game yet, I really was invested in this story. And personally, my favorite type of RPGs are the first person ones like Skyrim and Fallout. Because it just makes me feel way more immersed in the main character than in The Witcher for example. Because what The Witcher does really well is make me feel like I'm playing Geralt. I truly get to know him and make decisions for and with him. But in a first person RPG where you create your own character, it's different because it's supposed to be you. Although that's how I see and play it, and the first person perspective really enhances that feeling. So again, without spoiling anything, seeing everything happen from that moment on in the story made me really invested. And honestly, I couldn't stop playing, except when the game crashed of course. But that experience changed with the patches the game received. And although the patches fixed most crashes and the biggest problems, the game still had a ton of bugs, features that didn't work, or flat out perks for things that didn't even exist in the game. But luckily that's where the next gen patch comes in. Because with this patch, a lot of people finally gave Cyberpunk a chance again and see how great it was underneath all the problems, especially on consoles. And to see the main Cyberpunk Reddit fill up with great moments in the game that players love, to working features, new discovered secrets, I feel really happy for them. Because they finally get to experience this amazing story with his characters, with a better performance, less glitches and more working features. And besides basically fixing a lot of the game, it also added some free DLCs, like customizable and new apartments, finally changing the look of your character in the mirror, and even a few more weapons. And Cyberpunk is now at a state that I would recommend it playing to anyone, especially on next gen consoles or great PC builds. Because before I only suggested it to people who had like high end PC builds and could handle some glitches, but now I would say it's definitely playable. And of course not everything is fixed yet, like the police could get some improvements and there are still a couple bugs out there, but things like the improved crowd reactions and the overall balance in the game are great changes. And although I have been playing it for a week now, since I really wanted to test it out and discover more features before writing this review, it isn't really a great patch for those who already completed Cyberpunk. I didn't achieve every single achievement in the game, but I did complete the story, all the side quests, gigs and CPD missions. So I basically did everything you could do in Night City. And I was really hoping for some sort of announcement or teaser for the upcoming expansion, but I think have to wait a little longer for that to happen. I mean, it was fun to check out the new apartments and everything else the patch had to offer, but I was bored quickly with my main save file and continued on a new save file. And although it was great, I'm definitely waiting for something new. Because in my opinion, this patch is definitely made for those who are in the middle of a playthrough, or for those who are waiting to play on their first one. And for those people, I would recommend continue to play it, and if you're still on the edge of buying it, I would recommend it as well. The game is now on sale on Steam and you can find some physical console copies for like 20 bucks. But the best thing is that you can finally try the next gen version of Cyberpunk for free, because there is a new timed exclusive demo on consoles that you can try up to for 5 hours. And if you decide to buy the game, you keep the progress you made so far, but keep in mind this demo is only for the next gen consoles. But anyway, as I said, even when Cyberpunk 2077 is mostly great now, I'm really curious what we'll see in the expansion. Besides obviously more playable content, I do hope even more features make it in. And especially the one who got cut from the first gameplay demo, like wall climbing with your mantis blade, more cinematic third person cutscenes, a functioning monorail, which a modder has fixed by the way, and much more. But to conclude my review for the next gen edition of Cyberpunk, I would recommend it. And if you were ready to play it or to continue your current save file, now is the time to do it. You can now buy it on sale or even try out the free demo on the next gen consoles. But for those who already completed everything Night City had to offer, you can have a couple of hours of fun with the new additions like apartments, but you just have to wait for the new expansion before you can do anything new. But if you're up for it, a second playthrough is also a fun way to discover all the improved features. But especially when Cyberpunk is mostly fixed now, I mostly can't wait what's next for this game. But what are your thoughts on this game and patch so far? Do you enjoy it, or are you in one of those camps who still haven't tried it? Please let us know in the comments down below. And if you think this review was helpful in any way, please like and subscribe because it really helps out my channel a lot. And with that, thank you all for watching and I will see you next time.